Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So my most requested video finally here. We are going to discuss all of the settings, strategies, and team setup when it comes to NHL 22. Now in this video, I'm going to cover all of the basics in terms of just settings, whether it be your controller or your camera, all the way to how to actually do the behind the net strategy and what the meta is in NHL 22 so far. Now guys, I'll have many other videos that will go in depth in terms of how to score as well as how to play defense with these strategies. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. All right, guys, let's get into it. All right, guys, the first thing we want to talk about is just your team makeup. Now, this is obviously very generalized, but this is basically what you want to look out for when building your team, and that's going to come into play when it comes to the settings and strategies that you want to do and use to give yourself the best chance to win. So, first things first, you want to have right-handed players on the left wing and left-handed players on the right wing. The reason for that is that you want players to always be in a position for a one-timer. Also, off the rush, you want to be able to have wingers that go down the boards and give you the option to cut into the middle to go for a short-sided wrister. Nothing has changed here in the last 15 years of playing NHL Online. This remains the same. On defense, after NHL 21's brief hiatus of going opposite-handed defensemen, we are now back into the same thing that we've always used, and that's right-handed defensemen on the left side and left-handed defensemen on the right side. Again, same situation. You want to use them for one-timers, and in NHL 22, it is very important to have this set up because getting shots on goal quickly is extremely important. You do not have a lot of time and space in NHL 22, and this is going to allow you to get the puck off quicker and faster. All right, now let's discuss settings, as this does play a large role into making the game a little bit easier for yourself. We're going to start with controller settings first. Obviously, you want to use the skill stick. If you're using any sort of other way, even hybrid, you need to figure it out and learn skill stick. All right, the next thing that you want to make sure that you have is auto backskate off. When it is turned on, your defenseman will turn around at their own discretion when defending the rush, and because of the penalty that was introduced in NHL 21, when turning around, your defensemen receive a pretty negative speed debuff, so you want to make sure that you control when your players turn around. Auto hustle is new for NHL 22, and honestly, I'm not sold on either. Try it out. On basically means that you don't have to hold down the left thumbstick, which essentially would save your controller for the most part, but I don't notice it either on or off. I mean, I'm going to do some more testing on it, but for right now, I just have it off because I like having more control, or at least thinking that I do. When it comes to vibration, I recommend having it off. For the people that have it on, I will never understand why just make your hands shake when you're trying to play a sweaty game. But regardless, that's personal preference. And then online pass assist percentage. Guys, this needs to be at 100. There used to be a big online theory that lowering it would actually help you out and help your passes actually aim better. Online pass assist has nothing to do with the actual aiming of the pass. It has everything to do with the circle that is around the player receiving the puck. So the higher the pass assist percentage, the bigger the circle for the player receiving the puck, and that obviously just increases the range at which they receive it cleanly. So please have this at 100. You need to talk quickly about your camera. I'm a big proponent of the zone camera angle. When you watch me play, it's probably one of the biggest questions I get is what camera I'm using. It does seem pretty zoomed out, but the one thing it does is that it allows you to see all three zones. The only other option, in my opinion, is overhead, but the one difference that overhead has to zone is that you cannot see behind you when you're in the offensive zone. So when you're down low cycling the puck and there's a random change going on from your opponent, you can't see if someone is outside the zone behind the blue line. So that is why I like having the zone camera angle. I think that it is the best, but again, it is all personal preference. If you're really trying to maximize your ability at the game, use zone or overhead. It gives you the best look at what's going on. All right, now it's time to get into my actual settings. And it did take me about a week or so to come up with this because the game changed so much that it was just jarring. Honestly, NHL 21 to 22 is probably the biggest change in gameplay that we've had in maybe a decade. So obviously the settings and whatnot and how they were actually used in NHL 22 were not the same as in 21. So I wanted to make sure that I tested everything and found the best, in my opinion, to give yourself the best advantage of the game. The one thing I do need to say is that this is how it will start. Every opponent is going to play different for the most part, and your settings and strategies need to adjust based on your opponent. This video is designed to make sure that you understand what the opponent is actually doing on offense and defense, and then allowing you to use the appropriate strategies mid-game. All right, so we're going to go to manage lineups. Let's take a look at the strategies that I recommend early on in NHL 22, and we're going to start with the forecheck. So I'm going to go through all of these, and I'm going to explain what they do, and then I'm going to show you what they look like so that you have a little bit more of an understanding. So here is how the forecheck works. 1-2-2 aggressive will have one player in deep attacking the puck carrier with two players behind them, and then a third layer back, which would be the defenseman, really. The reason why I like this is because you can pressure your opponent with your skater, and right when you get to the opponent, when he starts kind of trying to move back and forth, you can switch off and play for the pass, and it obviously gives you the best advantage in terms of taking away time and space and forcing a bad pass. So that is why I like the 1-2-2 aggressive. Now, when does this not work and when should you switch? If you find your opponent using a defenseman or a forward and they are not passing to break the puck out of the zone, they're basically waiting for that one player to actually attack, and they're just curling around, you get beat, and then they're out of the zone. You want to switch to the 2-3, and the reason for that is now you've got two players attacking the puck carrier, and that's going to limit that. It's going to force them to pass. So again, those are the two that I would recommend. And honestly, it is all going to depend on your opponent. So again, I'm going to say this again. If your opponent is using one player not passing the puck out of the zone, you want to use the 2-3. If they pass the puck out of the zone quite a bit, then you want to use the 1-2-2 aggressive. All right, the neutral zone. This is how your team is going to react when your opponent is coming through the neutral zone. Right now, I enjoy the 1-2-2 red, but there is a specific way that you have to play to make this effective. Now, the 1-2-2 red is phenomenal against players who pass the puck out of the zone and into the neutral zone. What it is designed to do is to attack the puck carrier at all times. So what you need to get in the habit of, though, is changing off quickly. So the big adjustment here is that you cannot take one player and chase the puck carrier around, because what that will do is force your AI to basically have to read and make up for you bringing your player into the incorrect space. So if you chase using the 1-2-2 red, this is usually how you end up with odd man rushes or breakaways. So you need to be careful, and I'm going to show you tips and tricks on how to actually use this the correct way. If your opponent does not pass through the neutral zone at all, they just carry the puck with one player and wait for you to make a move and then break it in, you need to switch to the 1-4. Now the 1-4 is very difficult to actually get the puck back in the neutral zone. It is designed to stop your opponent from getting into the blue line. However, I don't think it is as effective in NHL 22 blanket, because I think the 1-2-2 red is much better at taking away time and space and can cause a lot of odd man rushes for you. All right, the trap and forecheck. This is really going to depend on if your opponent is burning you with breakaways and 2-on-1s. All right, so if you find that you are playing too aggressive, guys, this is why I mean that every single game you should be adjusting strategies throughout the whole thing. If you are getting burned on breakaways, I would say more than 1 or 2 in a game, or 1 and 2 in a period, you want to take this down. You want to go all the way back down to the middle. And if you're playing an opponent that is breaking the puck in and you've switched to the 1-4, please switch this all the way to trap. Having a high, heavy forecheck with 1-4 just does not work at all. So make sure that you switch to trap, full trap, when you switch to this neutral zone. But for the most part, when you're using 1-2-2 red, you want to take advantage of that aggressiveness, and you need to learn where your players are supposed to be. And once you do that, they are going to have very little time and space to actually do anything, and that is how you're going to create a lot of offense. Now, the offensive pressure. This is how your players will react when you are carrying the puck up the ice. So with an aggressive setting, you're basically telling your defensemen, your forwards, everything to move up the ice with the breakout, okay? You're carrying the puck through the neutral zone. All of your players are going to head up the ice with you. Same with full attack. I wouldn't recommend going anything more than aggressive, because what happens is your defensemen will too, and if there's any sort of bad bump, you can't get in at the blue line, your defensemen have a really hard time getting back. So in my opinion, I use aggressive because I like just attacking my opponent early on and causing a lot of havoc. Again, same situation. If you're giving up a lot of breakaways, 2-on-1s, you need to switch this back to even defend lead, but conservative is probably where I would stick it, because again, this only impacts you when you're carrying the puck up the ice, which isn't super important to have really high, but you just want to be careful in case you're losing the puck when trying to break it in. All right, defensive pressure. Now, the meta for NHL 22 early on in terms of how most players are looking to score is by cycling down low, which is nothing new. but then wrapping the puck out in front. They are waiting for you to get some pressure, and then you skate in front of the goaltender and wrap it on the forehand or the backhand. The one-timer isn't all that dangerous anymore, and this has nothing to do with the one-timer because intercepting passes when you're actually in the lane is now something that's pretty easy to be done. But the protect net strategy in terms of defensive pressure is set because that is what most players are looking for, is that wrap or walk out in front, and you want to make sure you have players that can stop that entirely. Now, when do you want to change this? When you notice that players aren't just circling along the boards, maybe they're trying to cycle it, maybe they're going for point shots or one-timers, you can go all the way up to high pressure. If you've got a player who does not like holding onto the puck, let's say you're in the lower divisions. Let's say, I'm gonna generalize here, but 4 and below, you probably are facing a lot of opponents that don't like holding onto the puck with one player. They like to pass it around, look for that one time or something like that. The really, really high-end players are comfortable with the puck and have a really, really good ability of holding on to it. When you use high pressure against them, you're toast because they are just waiting for that pressure so they can beat you and then walk out in front. So if you're playing in the lower divisions, high pressure will work if you are playing someone who is not just trying to hold on to it with one player. I'd recommend protect net, and if that's too on the safe side, you can go contain puck as well. The defensive strategy, this is probably the strategy that will change more often than any of the other strategies when you're facing an opponent. So, because you're using contain puck or protect net and you're collapsing in front of your goaltender, what is wide open is the points. Now, if your opponent is continuously taking advantage of the fact that his points are open, which they should, and which I want you guys to do when on offense, but let's say they are actually going back to the point now and ripping point shots. You need to switch to tight point because that is now going to take that away. And if you see that they're comfortable, at least early on, taking point shots, when you switch to tight point, they will not be ready for it. And if you play for that intercept, you can intercept those passes and you're on a breakaway all the way out. But again, this is all going to depend on the opponent. I would not recommend using tight point against someone who is not going to the point and taking one-timers very often because that is literally just opening up the slot for your opponent. The kill, this one really doesn't matter all too much. I like passive box because, again, that just allows your players to come back in and you're trying to take away that backhand wrap. Power play, this one's awfully tough. I'm not a huge fan of the power play strategies because you can't use behind the net, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Even overload, I'm not a huge fan of. I just use umbrella right now, but I'll have a video that comes out walking you through the best way to do a power play. It's basically the same thing using behind the net. You're just in a different strategy because it isn't an option. Power play, carry, and dump, that really doesn't matter all that much because it doesn't really impact your AI. This is more of an offline strat. All right, control breakout. I have found a way on breakouts that might be the most effective ever in NHL, and using the control breakout and quick breakout effectively can lead to a ton of goals. Basically, why you want strong side slant as well as leave zone early is because this is going to allow that far side winger to skate up the ice, and if your opponent does not play for it, there's a very easy way to fire the puck up accurately and send yourself on a breakaway or a 2-on-1. 3-on-3 offense, I always go passive because if you get burned in 3-on-3, it's pretty much over. Now let's talk about the actual strategies and how to score. So in depth, we're going to talk about behind the net as well as these sliders. I'm going to give a shout out to Young Gren here, the North American GWC champion of 2021. He came into my stream. I'm very good friends with him, and he said try out these sliders. I'm not big on paying attention to sliders, but these are the ones that I've used so far, and I've found them to be pretty effective. So use them at your own discretion. I don't think that they have a huge impact on it, but behind the net is what you want to focus on, and using all 4 lines using behind the net. And once you learn how to use behind the net effectively, especially in 21, you're laughing. For defensive pairings, I'm all about hold the line and cycle. This one is pretty important to watch out for. If you have it to pinch, awfully dangerous. I just wouldn't mess around with it. Hold the line for this one. All right, guys, now let's go take a look at some of these in action and how you're going to use these effectively and how to score. All right, so let's get into how to use the behind the net strategy. And the reason why I want to show you guys this one as opposed to crash net and overload is because it allows you to set up the most amount of options in NHL 22, a lot like it did in NHL 21. The other options are still viable, but I want to show you guys this one first in this first video because in my opinion it is the most important to understand. So what you're looking for when you're using behind the net is to basically set up a cycle of just a rotation continuously until your opponent pulls his player and chases you enough so that out in front, your guy will slide all alone and easy tap in goal. All right, so let's watch this one more time. So notice how I have McDavid and I wait to get pressured. My eyes this entire time I'm cycling the puck around is on that backside winger. I'm waiting for him to go behind the net so that I can fire it behind the net and get him the puck. Once he gets the puck, what will happen is that winger that just fired it will make a beeline towards the net, and that is what you're waiting for, because once he gets free, it's an easy tap-in goal. All right, so that is the main foundation of this strategy when using behind the net. However, the goals that stem from this setup are what really makes it strong, especially in NHL 20. So the most effective way and what you're really trying to get your opponent to do, at least competitively, is to get them to chase you behind the net so that you have a free run to backhand wrap your opponent. You can also do this on the forehand, but the backhand is the most effective and easiest to pull off. Now, once you've done this a few times, your opponent is going to pick up on the fact that you're cycling behind the net or you're going for a wrap. And all you're trying to do with this, and even if you don't score early on, is you're trying to get him to draw his attention to the player with the puck, because the other options that open up when doing this strategy are very, very easy to pull off once you know what to look for. And in this situation right here, all I'm doing in this situation is waiting for the player that he's controlling to make a step off of that backdoor player, and then I fire over the pass. I'm not looking at the player with the puck at all, and that allows me to pass it over at the correct time. All right, guys, now these are just the basics that I want you guys to learn and try out. Again, it is going to be very different for every type of player, but once you learn how to actually use the strategies and actually see what your opponent is doing, it's going to make you infinitely better at the game. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and make sure to subscribe, as I will be having videos that will go in depth to how to set up more offensive plays as well as defense coming in the next little while. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.